I want to go to Marn'i Washington Milton. You heard the testimony, the person in question. They kept referencing her as the fired FEMA worker. She joins us now on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Glad to have you back on the show. This hearing like I said, is taking place as we speak. First, were you invited by the House Oversight Committee to testify today?
No.
So they're having a hearing discussing FEMA. They're having a hearing talking to the administrator. They're talking about you. They're showing your text messages. They're talking about directives that you gave, and you did not get an invitation from the Republicans or the Democrats on this committee?
No, sir.
Okay. Have you been watching this hearing today?
Yes, with such disdain.
Say it again?
With such disdain.
Why?
Because I find it ridiculous that they need to hide safety precautions for political advances. They know we take safety precautions serious, and the community trends have nothing to do with recovery trends that Ms. Criswell was discussing earlier. Community trends, when we're discussing things that could potentially be a danger to a team, are the surrounding elements of that. And again, the Trump campaign signs were not the focus. The focus was safety. But since we continue to focus on Trump, I want to know, how did Ms. Criswell vote? It's apparent how I voted, and they keep saying that this was politically motivated. So where does she stand in her voting?
On that particular point there, in terms of they went through this here. You heard Raskin say there, what you did was wrong, what you did was illegal. But you also had Congressman Mfume asking, wait a minute, did higher ups tell her to do this?
I find it really baffling that people that have not been in the field have such an arrogant opinion about what is happening in the field. I'm not some deranged woman that's come up with a rule on my own and said, hey, this is how we're going to keep our people safe. I need to remind the American people before I even arrived to Florida, they were already implementing the avoidance and de-escalation policy because there had been so many hostile encounters. If you notice, Ms. Criswell deflected when they asked her, how many incident reports do you have?
During the hearing, Congressman Jared Moskowitz, who is a Democrat, he spoke, and he talked about his work. And I'm assuming, let me try to go to it. And I'm assuming when he was talking about that he said that he had done this work with FEMA. Give me 1 second. So let me play this, and then I want to get your thoughts on what he had to say.
Congress, who's run a disaster response, run a disaster recovery, handed out billions of dollars of FEMA money. Also a Democrat who worked in a Republican administration and ran the recovery efforts for Hurricane Michael in deeply Republican areas of the Panhandle. I can tell you not once did I ever think about their politics or my politics. As I toured the Panhandle in Neil Dunn's district or Matt Gaetz's district, I looked at people as Americans who were hit by a disaster. And my job was to get them every program that FEMA had, every dollar available to them. That was my job. What happened in Florida in this instance is deeply disturbing. It's unacceptable. I know you know that. Disaster aid should never be declined based on support of any political candidate. And I'm happy this rogue employee was fired. You did the right thing immediately, right? What should have happened here is if there were members of FEMA's team that felt uncomfortable, that should have been passed up to the FCO. That should have gone to the federal coordinating officer. And then that information should have gone to Director Guthrie, who's the Director of Emergency Management in the state of Florida, my former deputy. And then they could have made sure to identify those homes and gotten them the information. But that's not what happened. There was a clear...
So I want to freeze it right there. So he calls you a rogue employee. And so he lays out what he says the process should be. How do you respond to that?
I find him highly unethical. And the first thing in the military is you never ask your subordinate to do anything that you're not willing to do yourself. So, in order to run a proper investigation, someone that has a clear record, evaluations exceed expectations, is telling you they received a direct order from a superior that's been demoted before in the past for giving the wrong order. It was not properly looked into. They just immediately fired me. If you notice, Miss Criswell could not answer the question when Mr. Jordan asked her, have you investigated him? Have you asked him the question? So it's not a level of misunderstanding or comprehension on my part. They're choosing not to admit that they put safety precautions in place that may have violated people's rights. But in the same breath, another organization is coming forward and asking, how come the safety precautions have not evolved over time, being that things in the field have changed over the last 5 years?
He lays out this process. Well, it should have been gone to this person and this person, this person. Again, for the folks who don't know, when folks on the ground told you what they were encountering, what did you then do?
I always communicate with my task force lead. We have morning meetings all the time on the phone. And his directive, his mantra, his entire deployment has to keep people safe and keep people comfortable. So in order to keep people safe and comfortable, we have to consider what makes people feel safe and comfortable. And unfortunately, both of those two adjectives are subjective. Ms. Criswell has failed to put an outline in place for safety precautions as far as safe and comfortable for the team. It leaves room for interpretation. So again, my duties, my directives come from my TFL, Chad Hershey. I implemented everything he asked me to during that deployment.
So, again, you were instructed by Chad Hershey to tell the folks, hey, keep it moving.
Yes. I even explained to him that our partnering company, the Surge Capacity Team, they expressed grievances with our safety precautions. And I have to say, they appeared to be anti-FEMA the entire time. They were not interested in our policies and our procedures. And unfortunately, it emboldened them to be malicious and to release personal information nationwide about Route 33 in Highlands County. If Chad Hershey would have addressed these concerns immediately and educated them on FEMA policies, we wouldn't be here today. But no one took into consideration their discomforts with the safety precautions.
Is Chad Hershey still with FEMA?
Yes, he was not investigated. He was not held accountable for my actions. Again, I was thrown under the bus as a rogue employee that was creating policy and rules on their own.
And again, this hearing is still going on right now. Nutcase, Louisiana Congressman Clay Higgins is talking. That is an absolute waste of my time listening to what he has to say because he is literally deranged. And so, do you find it offensive that, again, there's a hearing and they don't bring in the person who they're all talking about?
Yes, I have no reason to lie. I have no reason to coop up a story here. I'm giving you fresh intel from what happened on the ground. And it's been confirmed from other entities and other employees that have called me privately and said it's not isolated. The only reason why they're not flooding the gates is because they fear retaliation, and they're trying to figure out, well, how do we be transparent and honest about this? Because here's an opportunity for Miss Criswell to improve the security measures for her team. But instead of her acknowledging that there is a weakness in our practice, she is sweeping it underneath the carpet and saying it doesn't exist and that it was isolated. And how the hell can that be when we already have reports in North Carolina that FEMA workers were being under attack? If you even look at DR 4819, which happened in Chicago, you had FEMA workers that were uncomfortable to even process African Americans in urban areas because they did not feel comfortable in those neighborhoods. How about they research and look into that?
You sent us. You said that you had been reached. You were contacted by some folks out of Georgia that this was a photo that greeted FEMA workers at the entrance of a particular property. Folks hanging in effigy.
Yes, that happened last week. Someone sent me that text message and said there really is a problem. Now,
And this image here, are they? I mean, it doesn't show who this depicts, but clearly it's folks hanging from that apparatus, that pole.
correct. And then there's ammunition signs at the bottom of it. That's not welcoming. And honestly, FEMA's policy is to avoid and disengage. That there's no room for interpretation there other than somebody is going to feel uncomfortable with that display.
Absolutely, absolutely. When you, as I said, you had Democrat Jared Moskowitz saying that you were a rogue. I mean, first of all, you heard rogue employee. You heard folks who say you broke the law. You were partisan. I mean, there were a whole lot of attacks being made against you in impugning your character, even by Democrats and Republicans in this hearing.
Mm-hmm. Which proves my point that I'm being used here and as a scapegoat. Where did that directive come from? I didn't come up with that directive. I'm simply following orders. And this was a work cultural practice that was already happening in Florida upon my arrival. When they complete the investigation and they look into everything, I'm sure they will find dates prior to my arrival where avoidance and de-escalation policies were implemented in order for people to feel comfortable to canvass. But here is the question, Roland. If this is not political, why did FEMA give us stand down orders on Election Day? Did they have any viable threats on that day for us not to canvass? And if not, why did we not canvass?
You heard the FEMA directors say under questioning that an investigation was indeed taking place. An inspector general. Have you heard from? Have you heard from anyone regarding this internal investigation?
I know special counsel reached out to me. They wanted me to relinquish all of my documents. And I didn't at the time because I didn't have representation. And still, as of this date, I do not. But based on the status of where everything is, I will be relinquishing that information over to them in the next 24 hours to prove that there was not a violation of the Hatch Act and that all of the directives were in motivation of keeping the team safe as a whole.
And so what you say, you still have yet to hire an attorney?
Correct.
Gotcha. You did launch a GoFundMe page. Go to my iPad, and you laid this out. The target goal is $100,000 because you said, one, not only, again, they're trying to, one, the state of Florida is suing you. They're alleging a violation of the Hatch Act. And as a result of this, not only have you lost the FEMA job, you lost your civilian job, and you've had to actually leave your home because of all of these threats against your life, correct?
Correct. Mind you, I did receive a call where someone wanted to rape me and give me a proper nigger lynching. I've had several calls telling me that I deserve what I'm getting and I'm going to get what's coming to me very soon. And I find it completely baffling because I was under orders and my superiors have no integrity. They have not come forward and said, yes, she was following orders for safety precautions. Instead, they're trying to sweep this underneath the carpet as if this is some plight to attack President Trump, and it's not.
Well, again, folks, if you go to GoFundMe and just simply type in Marn'i Washington, you'll be able to pull up her GoFundMe. It is there. And so, Marn'i, we appreciate it. We're going to continue to watch this hearing, as I'm sure you are. And as it continues, we'll look forward to having you back to hear from your perspective over what we're hearing out of Capitol Hill.
Thank you again, Roland, for a voice.
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Hi, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Fanbase is a free to download, free to use, next generation social media platform that allows anyone to have followers and subscribers on the same page. Fanbase was built through investment dollars from equity crowdfunding from the Jobs Act. People just like you help build Fanbase, and we're looking for more people to help build Fanbase. We are currently raising $17 million in a Regulation A crowdfund on Start Engine. We've already crossed $2.1 million, but we're looking to raise more capital from people just like you that deserve the opportunity to invest in early stage startups without having to be accredited investors. So right now, I'd like you to go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest. The minimum to invest is $399. That gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase right now, today. And then use Fanbase to connect with friends, grow your audience, and be you without limits.